My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask you for pardon of my sins, and for the grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. We continue in Advent. In 2 days we celebrate your birth, Jesus. And today we read in the Gospel what happened when John the Baptist was born. Now the time came for Elizabeth to give birth, and she bore a son. Her neighbors and relatives heard that the Lord had shown his great mercy to her, and they rejoiced with her. And the Gospel continues, saying that on the 8th day they came to circumcise a child, and they were going to name him Zechariah, after his father. Now, this is not the parents, no. These are the people who wanted to name him Zechariah. But his mother said, no, he is to be called John. Now then the neighbors insisted, continuing to give their opinion. They said to Elizabeth, no one in your family has that name. Now these people are a little bit annoying, aren't they? They did not like this answer. And so, the Gospel says, they asked his father, by signs, what he wanted him to be called. And Zechariah, asking for a tablet, wrote, his name is John. And at that precise moment, St. Luke says, his mouth was opened and his tongue freed, and he began to speak, praising God. Now this is a different kind of talk, that of Zechariah. It is striking how involved all the neighbors seem to be in naming St. John. Notice that without asking anyone, they wanted to name the child Zechariah. Just like that. And when Elizabeth said no, that he was going to be called John, the neighbors insisted. But no one in your family has that name. The baby's mother does not change her mind, and the neighbors decide to ask the father. Listen, we want to call the baby Zechariah, but your wife won't let us. Isn't that odd? Trying to name other people's children without asking their parents first. Can you imagine this? A friend of yours has a baby, and instead of asking them, so, what are you going to call him? You go and say, well, this baby is going to be called Noah, after his grandfather. And the mother says, well, we want to call him George. And we said, no, nobody in your family is called George. Well, that's how it was with St. John. Now today, Jesus, we see the contrast between the speech of the neighbors and the speech of Zechariah. Jesus, how quick are some people to offer their opinion. And they seem to have an opinion about everything. But you, Jesus, tell us that Advent is a time of silence. As we learn from your mother, Mary, and your father, Joseph, it is time for an active silence. Not just to be silent, but to contemplate, to pay attention. It is a time to learn to listen. Listen more, talk less. Because those who talk do not listen. And those who do not listen do not understand. And they miss your birth, Jesus, again. Like on the first Christmas. Now there are people who go through life like these neighbors of Elizabeth and Zechariah, offering their opinion on everything and everyone, meddling in everyone's life. They may feel compelled to make judgments. Maybe it's because every time we use an app or a website, or you go to the dentist, or you watch Sesame Street, or you buy a teddy dinosaur, they ask you, please, rate us. Would you like to write a review? Would you like to share your opinion with other users? We're constantly asked to rate everything. So maybe that's why some go through life giving their opinion on everything and everyone. They are like judges at the Olympics, sitting there watching the trampoline jumps, and when they hit the water, they'll pull out their scorecards and add up the points. Can you imagine? The priest finishing the homily, and everyone pulling out signs with numbers on them. I will give the priest a 6. Yeah, the anecdote was weak. It lost momentum halfway through, and the relevance of the topic, the tone of the voice and acoustics weren't great. Right? Now, thank goodness it doesn't happen, hopefully, at least to many of us. But still, in this time of silence, that is Advent, we need to check if we are sometimes too quick on the trigger to start offering advice, opinions and reviews, when we could just relax, listen, and contemplate more the message of Advent. Jesus, if we need to ponder anything in our hearts, it should be, like Our Lady, your words, Jesus, in the Gospels, don't you think? Help us, Lord, to focus on what really matters during these final days of Advent. We should be more like Elizabeth and Zachariah, and less like their neighbors, who feel compelled to offer their opinion on everything. So Advent should help us to talk less and listen more. Share less bad reviews and more good news. Basically, the good news of the Gospel. That Jesus is coming, and it will be very soon. After all, one often regrets much more having said too much than having said too little, isn't it? You've probably heard that it's not necessary to say everything you think, but to think about everything you say. At school, we use an acronym to help children be careful when they speak. Before you speak, think. And the word think serves as an acronym, each letter standing for a word. The T stands for true. Before you speak, think, is it true what I'm going to say? Then comes the H, helpful. Before you speak, think, is what I'm going to say helpful? Then I, of important. Is it important what I want to say? And the N stands for necessary. Before you speak, think, is it necessary to say what I'm going to say? And finally, K stands for kind. Before you speak, think, is what I'm going to say kind, charitable? And so, if after thinking about it, you have doubts about whether it is true or helpful or necessary or charitable, then it may be better, like Zachariah, to remain silent. In the words of San Josemaria, don't make negative criticism. If you can't praise, say nothing. And especially in Advent, there is not much to say. There's a lot to listen to. Think about it. How easy it is to criticize. Do you remember the film Ratatouille? The character in the film explains it very well. The critic, Anton Ego. Criticizing, he says, is easier than producing. So he says,
in many ways, the work of a critic is easy. We risk very little, yet enjoy a position over those who offer up their work and themselves to our judgment. We thrive on negative criticism, which is fun to write and to read. But the bitter truth we critics must face is that in the grand scheme of things, the average piece of junk is probably more meaningful than our criticism designating it so.
Well, sure enough, he is right. Criticizing is always easier than doing, but certainly not very charitable, not kind. Jesus teaches to listen more and offer less opinions, especially negative criticism. Mary, my Mother Immaculate, during this Advent, help us to speak less and listen more, to think carefully before criticizing, to refrain from giving our opinion unless we are asked, to live charity always and in everything, to never have to regret saying too much, to live Advent like you, Mother, and like St. Joseph, in active silence, in contemplation. I give you thanks, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations that you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask you for help to put them into effect. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.